This is an analysis from Alpha Business Media. When you analyze a national economy, you're usually looking at GDP, export volume, maybe foreign reserves. But sometimes you have to look at the narrative. And for 50 years, Nepal has had one of the most powerful brand narratives on the planet. The Cathedral of Endurance. You go there to suffer. You go there to conquer Mount Everest, to brave the Khumbu icefall, to survive the elements. It's gritty, it is dangerous, and it is absolutely iconic.
It is iconic. I mean, it's a brand most nations would kill for. But here's the issue we're unpacking today. From a strict business strategy perspective, that narrative has actually become a trap.
Strategic trap.
Yeah.
That's a pretty bold claim for a country that's so synonymous with adventure.
It is, but if you think about the fundamentals, when your entire economic identity is tied to extreme physical adventure, you're relying on a single highly seasonal product.
Right.
You're vulnerable to weather, to climate change, and frankly, you are limiting your total addressable market to a very, very specific slice of humanity.
People willing to sleep in a tent at minus 20 degrees.
Yeah, exactly. Which brings us to the mission of today's deep dive. We're looking at a roadmap, a really detailed strategic pivot that suggests Nepal is sitting on a hidden $500 million subsector.
But to unlock it, they have to flip the script entirely. We're talking about moving from, volume-based adventure tourism to value-based wellness tourism.
And I want to be really clear for you listening. This isn't just about building a few luxury spas or, adding a yoga studio to a hotel. The sources we've looked at treat this as a total re-engineering of a national business model.
Okay.
It's a fundamental shift from selling conquest to selling restoration.
So let's look at the why before we get to the how. The data paints a pretty stark picture of the current model, doesn't it? We all sort of romanticize that backpacker and thamel, eating momos, gearing up for a 3-week trek.
That's the classic image. And that Western venturer demographic, it has been the bread and butter for decades. But if you strip away all the romance and just look at the unit economics, the yield is incredibly low.
The report we saw mentioned a high-duration, low-spend dynamic.
Right. Let's break that down. So these tourists, they stay for a long time, often 21 days or even more, which on paper sounds great. It boosts your occupancy numbers.
Yeah.
But their daily spend is often capped between $50 and $70. They're on a strict budget, staying in tea houses, eating local, minimizing every single cost.
So essentially you have a high impact on the infrastructure. I'm thinking wear and tear on trails, waste management in these remote areas, the cost of rescue services, but a relatively low financial return per person.
Precisely. It's a volume game. You need thousands and thousands of them to make the math work. And the source material highlights this massive opportunity cost here. While Nepal is busy counting trekking permits, another demographic is rising right next door with completely different economics.
And this is the persona the sources label the Asian executive.
Yes. This is the pivot point. The argument is to stop designing the industry for the 20-year-old gap year student from Europe and start designing it for the 45-year-old tech CEO from Bangalore.
Or the 38-year-old finance director from Hong Kong.
Exactly. And their psychology is what's interesting. They are not coming to Nepal to prove they're tough. They don't need to climb a mountain to feel accomplished.
No.
They're coming because they're broken.
That's a strong way to put it.
I know, but it's true.
Right.
The report highlights corporate burnout as the main driver. These are people running the engines of the world's fastest-growing economies. They're dealing with decision fatigue, the 906 work culture, that always-on digital pressure.
So they aren't physically exhausted, they're mentally fried.
Totally fried. And the last thing they want is a thin mattress in a noisy tea house.
They would pay a premium to avoid that.
A huge premium. They want structured disconnection, privacy, silence, sophistication. And here's where the math just gets so compelling. That trekker spends $50 a day, this wellness tourist. The data suggests they're willing to pay $500 to $800 a day.
That's a 10 times multiplier on the daily yield.
And they stay for shorter periods, usually 7 to 14 days. So your asset turnover is higher. It's just a much, much more efficient use of your capacity.
Okay, but I have to play devil's advocate. If I'm that CEO in Beijing with 10 grand to spend on a retreat, why wouldn't I just go to Bali or Costa Rica, the established players?
And that's the logistics argument. It's maybe the strongest card Nepal has. Time.
Time.
Think about it. If you're in Delhi, getting to Costa Rica is a 20-hour ordeal. Multiple layovers, jet lag, it's a huge commitment.
You spend 2 days just recovering from the travel. It defeats the whole purpose.
Exactly.
Right.
Kathmandu is a 3 to 4 hour flight from most of these major Asian hubs. Suddenly, Nepal transforms from this, distant, once-in-a-lifetime expedition.
Into a practical weekend solution, a nearby sanctuary.
Correct. So it becomes a recurring habit, not just a bucket list item. You could go twice a year. But, and this is a huge but, proximity is useless if the product isn't ready. You can be close, but if the experience isn't there, that person is never coming back. And the source material is very blunt. Nepal isn't ready.
Which brings us to the Kerala model. And I found this section really insightful because I always just thought of Kerala as, a place for nice massages.
That's the common misconception. That's what most policymakers think. They see a spa menu, they think, oh, we just need to offer Ayurveda.
But it's more than that.
So much more. The analysis clarifies that the Kerala model is actually economic architecture. It wasn't organic growth. It was a deliberate, state-led strategy to capture a market.
And it rests on 3 pillars. Let's walk through them because this is really the blueprint for Nepal. The first is trust and certification.
This is arguably the most critical one. So back in the 90s, Kerala had this problem. Ayurveda was becoming popular, and every roadside barbershop started putting up a sign
saying Ayurvedic massage.
Right, which was destroying the brand. If a high-end tourist pays good money and gets a dirty towel and bad service, they never come back. And they tell 10 friends.
So what do they do?
The state government stepped in and created the green leaf and olive leaf classification system.
It's kind of like a Michelin guide for wellness.
It's more like a hospital accreditation combined with a hotel rating. To get the green leaf, the gold standard, you couldn't just have nice candles. You had to meet rigorous audits on hygiene, on facility quality, and most importantly, the medical qualifications of your staff.
And that creates trust. If I'm booking from London, I know what green leaf means. I don't have to guess.
Exactly. It de-risks the purchase, and the report points out that Nepal has nothing like this, no Himalayan wellness seal. So a legitimate $10 million retreat looks the same online as some sketchy budget spa.
And that high-end customer just won't risk it.
They won't. Trust is the currency here. If you lose that, you're done.
Okay, that leads to the second pillar, which I thought was just a stroke of marketing genius, conquering the off-season.
This is pure asset management. In Nepal, just like India, you have the monsoon from June to August. Traditionally, that's a dead zone. The trails are mud, the mountain views are gone, hotels just shut down.
But Kerala flipped the script.
They did. They went back to the ancient Ayurvedic texts, which claim that the monsoon is actually the best time for therapy. The theory is that the cool, moist, dust-free air opens the pores and makes the body more receptive to treatments.
So they turned a bug into a feature. They rebranded the rain.
They stopped selling sun and sand and started selling monsoon rejuvenation. And Nepal has the exact same opportunity. The report explicitly suggests rebranding the Nepali monsoon as the Himalayan rejuvenation season.
I love that idea. Instead of apologizing for the weather, sorry, you can't see Everest, you pivot. You say, this weather is perfect for looking inward.
It changes the entire value proposition. I mean, rain-drenched valleys are incredibly atmospheric for meditation. If you're in a glass-walled studio, the mist is a feature, not a problem. Suddenly, your industry is weather agnostic.
You have year-round cash flow instead of a boom and bust cycle, which is huge for an investor. You can't carry the overhead on a 5-star property if it's empty 4 months a year.
You just can't. It flattens the curve.
So the third pillar is human capital. And the report distinguishes between raw talent and the service layer. What's the difference there?
Nepal has the raw talent in abundance. Monks, yogis, traditional healers. They know the plants, they have the wisdom. But, knowing the herbs isn't the same as knowing how to handle a high net worth guest.
The difference between a clinic and a hospitality experience.
Right. Kerala trained their medical experts, their Vaidyas, to function inside a luxury hotel context. They understand privacy, service standards, English fluency.
So Nepal needs vocational training that merges that ancient wisdom with modern luxury management.
You can't just transplant a monk from a monastery into a resort lobby and expect it to work. You need that bridge, that service layer, to make the experience seamless. They want the authenticity of the monk, but with the service of a Four Seasons.
So we have the blueprint, we have the target market, and honestly, it feels like Nepal should be winning this game easily. The report talks about an unfair advantage.
This is my favorite part of the whole analysis. It's about intellectual property. Nepal has something that Kerala and Bali don't have. It has provenance.
Provenance, you mean the origin.
Authenticity of origin. In luxury, provenance is everything. It's why you pay more for champagne from France. Well, Nepal is the custodian of the source code for Eastern spirituality. You have Lumbini, birthplace of the Buddha. You have these deep, ancient roots of Himalayan Buddhism and Shaivism.
So it's not just a service, it's a lineage.
Exactly. When you go to a retreat in California, it's an adaptation. In Nepal, you are at the source. That is an asset you cannot replicate. It's a brand halo that should, in theory, make Nepal the #1 destination for this in the world.
And yet, here we are. That $500 million market hasn't materialized. So why? What's the bottleneck?
And it isn't the roads or the airports, although those are challenges. The report identifies the primary blocker as regulatory purgatory.
That sounds painful. And I assume it has real-world consequences.
It kills investment. Dead. The core conflict is this jurisdictional battle between the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Tourism.
Okay, unpack that. Why are they fighting?
So imagine you're a foreign investor. You want to build a world-class wellness center. You offer medical-grade Ayurveda, so you need doctors on site, but you also have luxury suites and a fine dining restaurant. So question, are you a hospital or are you a hotel?
Right, you're both.
And legally, that is a complete nightmare. You're agonizingly both and neither. You have to navigate two completely different bureaucracies with conflicting rules. Does the Ministry of Health license your therapists? Does the Ministry of Tourism rate your bedrooms?
I can see how that ambiguity would just freeze any foreign direct investment.
It terrifies serious capital. An institutional investor hates ambiguity. If I'm putting $50 million into a project, I need to know the rules. And right now, that legal friction is the single biggest thing holding this back.
What's the fix? The source proposes a specific solution, right?
A Registered Wellness Center Act. Basically, a single window clearance system. You create a new legal category that harmonizes the health and tourism requirements and gives investors one clear set of rules.
It sounds so simple on paper.
It requires political will. And this brings us to the future outlook. The report outlines 3 possible scenarios for the next 36 months, and they are very distinct paths.
Let's go through them. Scenario 1 is stagnation.
This is business as usual. Nepal just doubles down on what it knows. Cheap trekking, more guest houses, lower prices, more crowds on Everest.
And the wellness market in this scenario?
It effectively disappears because the competition isn't sleeping. Bhutan captures the high-end market with their high-value, low-volume strategy, and India swallows the rest. Nepal just gets squeezed out completely.
That's a grim picture. What's scenario 2?
Fragmented boutique growth. So the government does nothing, but a few brave private entrepreneurs succeed anyway. They build amazing little retreats, find their niche.
Which sounds better than nothing.
It is, but it's limited. It remains a cottage industry. It never scales. You never get the national certification, the big marketing push. So maybe the sector generates $50 million, but you leave the other $450 million on the table.
Which leaves scenario 3, strategic national alignment.
This is the dream scenario. A public-private task force is formed. They pass the Wellness Establishment Act. They launch the Himalayan Wellness Seal. And critically, they target their marketing at those Asian corporate sectors.
So instead of an ad in Climbers Weekly, it's a feature in Forbes Asia.
Precisely. If that scenario plays out, wellness becomes the engine that powers the economy during the off-season. It creates thousands of high-quality jobs. It creates a resilient economy that isn't just dependent on whether it snows on Everest.
It really does seem like a pivotal moment. The source material ends with a pretty hard-hitting conclusion. It says the biggest obstacle isn't money. It's a failure of imagination.
That really resonated with me. For 50 years, Nepal has told itself a story. We are the playground for the brave.
And this pivot requires a whole new story. We are the sanctuary for the weary.
That's a massive identity shift. It's hard for a nation to change how it sees itself. It's hard to tell the Sherpa community that the future isn't just about the summit. But the market data is screaming for healing, not conquest.
Which leaves us with a really provocative thought to end on. If a nation's brand is built entirely on physical struggle, on the danger and glory of the mountains, can it successfully pivot to spiritual restoration without losing its essence in commercialization?
Can you package enlightenment for a CEO without turning it into just another commodity?
Exactly. Can you sell the source code without corrupting it?
That is the multi-million-dollar question. But if any country has the spiritual depth to walk that line, to do it right, it's Nepal.
It's a fascinating case study in national rebranding. We'll be watching closely to see which of those three scenarios plays out. That's it for this deep dive.
Thanks for having me.
This has been an analysis from Alpha Business Media. We will catch you on the next one.